Good evening, everyone. Oh, wow. I've been thinking about this a lot. I actually set this up the other day to try to do a video of showing people the different carburetors of the basic old Tillotsons with no like high-speed check valves or anything, and newer Walbro and Tillotson ones that have had these high-speed check valves, and Zama ones on weed eaters and chainsaws and different applications, okay? So this one here I have in my hand is one of your most basic Tillotsons that were pretty much the most popular carburetor for almost every manufacturer in the business since Tillotson's first designed the diaphragm carburetor back in oh man, it was really early, like I think in the late 20s or 30s, and I'm not kidding you. I actually have one off a on a distant motor that is a diaphragm carburetor, and I believe it was one of the first Tillotson carburetors ever made, a diaphragm carburetor. And the reason they went to diaphragm carburetors on chainsaws and other type of equipment, so you could actually run the saw on the side, upside down, and every which way it'll work because it's a diaphragm carburetor. Not a float carburetor where you can't do that, right? So that's why early chainsaws you had to like turn the bar and chain to like horizontal to do a horizontal cut, or vertical to do a vertical cut. You get what I mean there, probably, eh? But this basic Tillotson, I've done different videos on carburetors, on 394 carburetors, on rebuilding a Tillotson carburetor for 288s and 2100s, of how the governor system works and stuff. But this basic Tillotson off this old 266, which I'm going to go through and rebuild for a fella's 266 I did a video the other day on. It was Dylan's grandfather's saw. So, but I'm using this as an example, and I want to show you some stuff here that that is really basic, but you just got to understand it, okay? And then I'm going to show you on this newer Walbro here that is actually off an X-Torque 372. It's brand new. It's missing a couple of things like the divider in the middle and stuff, but I don't know why, but I got it brand new. I have so much stuff here, man. Boxes and boxes of carburetors, different carburetors for every different model of saw you can think of. I just, for some reason, I hoard carburetors just to kind of show people the differences, or if I ever need one for something, I do it. But it's kind of almost time to throw out some stuff. I get a little bit too much stuff. Had a busy day today. I had a few things to do. This morning I ripped apart a couple saws. Took one apart that was badly scored up. Then I had to go fix something at Shelly's daycare, our daycare, or really Shelly's, but I help out a bit. Had a really bad smell in there, like a bad dead rat or something underneath the building. So it was like, oh man, we went and put a whole bunch of like smelly stuff in there, charcoal and all this stuff. And today Shelly's like, oh, you gotta come check it out. So today I went there and crawled under this building. The gap was only like, I don't know, 2 to 3 feet high. And of course, no knee pads or nothing. I went there with my headlight and went in there, and oh my goodness, I found a dead cat that was rotten and stiff, and oh, it was gross. I kind of vomited, and it wasn't a fun job. That was a job for that Mike guy on TV that does the dangerous jobs or bad jobs. We should have hired him. But anyways, I got rid of this dead cat, and I did see nothing else down there. So hopefully will help out. You don't want little kids in a daycare to be smelling a dead carcass all day, right? So I've done my best, and we'll see how it is tomorrow and go from there. Sorry, off topic again. So let's get into this carburetor situation with Tillotsons and Walbros of this like high-speed main jet stuff. So this here, I'm gonna zoom in actually, because I want you to really see this one, because this is the most basic carburetor ever, and like I say, the most popular ever. You do not see Tillotson carburetors anymore on small engines like weed eaters, chainsaws, stuff like that. You still see them in business though. Tillotson's kind of a weird company. They still make these the big carburetors for like a lot of people use their metering system and their fuel pump system for racing carburetors for go-kart engines, and I think I showed you before, but I'll show you again right now. This here is a I think it's an IBEA carburetor made in Switzerland, but they all use the old basic HL Tillotson top ends, right? Fuel pump, metering diaphragm system. But they all obviously have different jetting and different bore sizes. Just beautiful handcrafted carburetors, okay? Used on go-kart racing engines. They also make go-kart chassis and motors now, like 4-stroke motors, but they just, obviously they're probably Chinese made, but they put the Tillotson name on it, and that's a big thing for them. So anyways, enough of that, but Tillotson is a very old company, the first company, I believe, that ever invented the diaphragm carburetor. Look it up in history and figure it out. I've done it before, but I just can't quite remember right now. So I'm going to zoom in right now. I'm going to show you the circuitry on this Tillotson of how it works and what to be looking for. Because a lot of mechanics miss this, and a lot of homeowners will miss it as well, of what you're looking for when a carburetor isn't working properly. So let's zoom in. Wow, we're going to go to number 2. Or number 1. Number 1 zoom or number 2? Let's go to number 2. Why isn't it working? Okay. There we go. Okay. Not going to see me, which you don't need to see me. You see me enough, right? So already on this carburetor, I had removed the low-speed circuitry Welsh plug. Now let's just go over this carburetor first so you understand. So on a diaphragm carburetor on a chainsaw, where the mounting surface is, you either have an internal pulse system to run the fuel pump, to pump the fuel from the gas tank to the carburetor, then into your metering chamber. Or you have an external system, sort of like this newer Walbro one off of 372, where you have a hose coming from the crankcase or the side of the cylinder to it, okay? There's lots of different ways they do it, but most old saws were the internal type one, so that's why you have to have your gaskets properly lined up, your insulator block between the cylinder and the carburetor set up properly so you can run the fuel pump diaphragm. So this thing moves up and down, pumps the fuel from the carburetor, the fuel tank to the carburetor, then into the metering diaphragm area, the metering system. And the way it pumps it in there is obviously as you're pulling it over, the vacuum system makes it work. When you have the choke on, it wants to pull more fuel, so it'll pull it through the low-speed circuitry to start the saw. Then as it fires, you set the choke off, obviously, onto a fast idle, and it'll start up and idle fast for a bit until you click it off with the throttle, and then you let it warm up for a bit, and away you go. Then you run your high-speed circuitry, okay? So this system here, when this Welsh plug is in the low-speed circuit, which you see I've already damaged it because I've poked it with this tuning screwdriver that I just sharpened on my bench grinder, poke it into the aluminum Welsh plug and pull it out, okay? The way it works, it feeds through a small hole underneath the Welsh metering diaphragm lever here, okay? The fuel there goes into your low-speed circuitry and gets it into the idle circuit and your mid-circuit and your kind of mid-circuitry, okay? To start the saw. Then after that, the fuel will come into this hole here, which will go into your high-speed circuitry, and you can control it by adjusting the high speed, obviously, just like you do with the low speed. So this type of system is very simple and works fine, and had worked fine for years until the governments of the world decided they have to have emission carburetors and smoother running stuff that doesn't pollute. So that's why they've gone to a lot of this type of system here on the Walbro and on Tillotson's, where they have check valves, okay? These here are your check valves that give you low speed the low speed fuel and idle fuel. Then they have a check valve here for the high speed, so it doesn't puddle and give you extra fuel to pollute. It works quite fine. It definitely gives you better fuel economy, less emissions, but I don't know. Yeah, they work just fine, actually. You know, they had problems with them at the beginning. The first Tillotsons that had this system, they had a problem on the 395 Husqvarnas, but me and my friend Magnus from Sweden, we did a bunch of work on the carburetor, and they finally figured out some different circuitry, what to do on the 395. We had changed the circuit plate here, the butterfly, and moved it a little bit different angle, grooved it out differently, because the first 395s with the Tillotson carburetor with this system didn't idle very good or restart good, didn't run on the side very good, so they finally changed it. Then they finally eventually went to a Walbro carburetor, okay? That's why the Walbro carburetors work better on 394s and 395s. Got to say, though, in 394s, they only had Walbros, but I'll tell you've seen my other videos about that, about needle and seats moving on those ones, okay? So let's get back to this basic Tillotson again. I just want to show you this. So this carburetor can be rebuilt so easily and cleaned with forced air and brake clean, no problem. Now that's something I have discovered in the last few years, and I'm an old school guy with old carburetors for years. But a lot of these new ones and stuff, you do not want to use a lot of forced air and powerful aerosol sprays like brake clean and carb cleaner. You just want to use a low pressure system to clean some of these, and maybe a little bit of stuff in an ultrasonic cleaner, okay? If you blow too hard on these little diaphragms, or they have little like check valves in these high-speed check valve and low-speed ones, you can damage them and the carburetor won't work properly. Then you have to replace it. You can replace these high-speed check valves, but a lot of times some aren't available for some models of carburetors, so you end up having to replace the carburetor. So that's the reason they tell you at tech schools and stuff, don't use forced air on carburetors anymore. Years ago you could with ones like this. So I'm going back to this basic Tillotson one now, and I'm going to show you this. I've already removed the low-speed Welsh plug or frost plug. I call them Welsh plugs. I don't know why. I just grew up that way. So I just sharpen a tuning screwdriver, pound it with a hammer, pry it out, okay? So there's your low-speed one. You have your idle hole, your mid-range holes, okay? Pretty basic. You take your needle out and spring and just blow through there. You know, there's nothing direct, no check valves, okay? Your high-speed one, all there is your feed hole here, your Welsh plug here, and your adjustment needle, okay? But underneath this Welsh plug, I'm going to show you something right now, which a lot of people miss, okay? They think, oh, you're just blowing air through there and there, it's going to work right. But nope, I'm going to show you something right now. So we're going to take this what I call an awl or a pointer. I'm going to take this Welsh plug out, or frost plug, whatever you want to call it. Look at that, the way it comes out. Now, inside here, might be a little hard to see for you. I'll put a little light on it. There's a fine screen in there, okay? There's a fine screen right in there with a little tiny clip that holds that screen in, and that just stops debris from going down in there, which I don't know why they ever even had it. You don't really need it. You can run them without it, okay? So I'm going to show you right now how this works. And a lot of times what I'm talking about is even the fine stuff gets through the fuel filter into the screen of the carburetor on the fuel pump side, and actually gets into this high-speed circuitry as well. Not so much in the low speed, it'll draw it through normally, but this fine screen in the high speed, I found a lot of these plugged up, which plugs up your high-speed circuitry. So you can rebuild this carburetor, it holds pressure and everything, but it still won't run right. It'll die out on the top end because this little screen in here is plugged. So I'm going to show you right now. There's a little kind of a round clip in here. I'm going to pull that out. Look at that. It comes right out with my little pointed tuning screwdriver. Okay. And then there's a fine screen here. Let's just tap it out. Yeah, won't quite come out. Let's just work it out then. Let's work it out. Doesn't want to come out. There it goes. There it is. There's your little fine screen. Hard to see, but that's a very fine kind of a copper screen. Okay? That can get plugged up and totally plug up your high-speed circuitry. So that's why a lot of guys with older Tillotsons like this, if you don't do this to it, like taking this extra Welsh plug out here on the high-speed and low-speed and clean that properly, it can still have problems in the top end, and you can lean out and blow up your saw. Some of the Tillotson carburetors years ago, the RK23HS carburetor kits, came with this little screen and the Welsh plugs, so you can rebuild this carburetor properly. So it came with the diaphragms and gaskets, 2 Welsh plugs, and this little screen, and a carburetor gasket too. But I got to tell you again, which I've told people 1,000 times on the internet. Do I have one here? I might. They come with this just basic carburetor gasket that fits most units, but this isn't it, but it's a black one, okay? It doesn't quite cover all the holes properly and line up to your insulator block that goes against your cylinder properly, okay? So you got to use the more rounder Husqvarna ones on every model of Husqvarna pretty much to cover that properly, to seal on your insulator block on your cylinder properly. Let me grab one and show you. Lucky enough, I just happen to have one right here somewhere. Or I did yesterday. Huh. It was right here. Anyways, you get what I mean, okay? So you got to make sure you ever use intake gaskets, use the right one that covers it all properly, or it'll lean out and suck air between here, and you'll still be chasing problems. So never use the ones that come with the Tillotson carburetor kit. It's only good for like old McCulloughs, old Homelites, a few like really old saws, okay? But not Husqvarnas, okay? Use this nice round one. So there you go. So this system here, you can use air and blow it all this system. You can leave the screen out if you want. Just put the Welsh plugs back in on each side. And the way I put them in is I just put the new ones on top here. And I just tap them down with like an Allen wrench or something. Just tap them down in there. Just so they spread out and seal properly, okay? A lot of old guys years ago would put nail polish varnish around it to seal it better, but I've seen no reason for that. If you install them properly, you do not need to use that, because that stuff comes off and gets into your motor and into your circuitry, okay? So there you go. That's the way to do it on the old Tillotson carburetors. So basic, right? You can't beat these. If your needle and seat does not leak, there's no reason you can't rebuild this carburetor and use it forever. The newer ones, yes, they're a bit of a problem for sure. You know, if you have problems with these little valves, you can't buy them separately. So you're pretty much screwed to actually rebuild it properly. But they're pretty bulletproof, these newer carburetors. As long as you clean it properly and it hasn't been sitting around a long time, hopefully it'll still work. And the way to test these valves here on the high-speed check valve is it's gotta be able to blow through but not have vacuum, okay? So what you do, like right now, if I just put this little piece of fuel line on here and check it, it blows both ways, okay? If I put my finger over that hole where the adjuster screw is and I blow on it, I can blow one way, not the other. So we know it's checking and it's working properly. So that's the way you need to check your high-speed check valves. And a lot of small carburetors on weed eaters and small chainsaws, that's a lot of problem with carburetors these days, okay? People don't understand that, or a lot of these new mechanics don't know that. They just squirt air like crazy through it all, and they mess them up, okay? You can replace these on some models, though. Then also on some models of carburetors, like the 357 Husky, 200T still, a lot of still trimmers. They actually have an accelerator pump system that runs off the throttle shaft, okay? So what it does, every time your throttle shaft moves, is giving it fuel. And it has a little plunger on the side here with an O-ring. This one little tiny O-ring can get damaged and totally wreck your carburetor system. If you notice on your trimmer or your blower, when you pump up the purge valve, it won't pump up with fuel. So you know either if your purge valve isn't pumping up with fuel, it's either your high-speed check valve or your accelerator pump system that works in conjunction with this system. And I'll go over that again with another carburetor off a still trimmer and show you how that purge primer system works and how the fuel pump, I should say the accelerator pump system works, okay? On 200Ts, the best topping saw ever on the market. Better than the 201. We all know if they run and die and race and stuff, it's either seals or carburetor. So a lot of time on 200T still topping saws when we used to rebuild them at Walker's and other shops, first thing we do is seals. And if it doesn't work, then we'll do a carburetor because it's that accelerator pump leaking. You can actually eliminate that accelerator pump system on 200Ts, but I'll show you that another time, okay? So, or a new carburetor, you know, a couple seals, a new carburetor, the motor's still fine. There's nothing wrong with spending a couple $100 in your topping saw for a pro that's making a lot of money every day. So unless you're a homeowner or something, then you want to go the cheap way, then you find other ways to MacGyver it, right? But all I'm saying is like, you know, like the new carburetors can be a little complex, especially the primer type ones. But once you get them figured out, they're not that much of a problem. This old system, yes, we all like old stuff and works good and always been proven. But today's technology with the emission specs and pollution and stuff, they all want cleaner running stuff. Which is okay. I like it too. Just today I was behind a guy in an old Dodge truck, you know, it was like an 80s or something. The friggin' thing was polluting so bad. You know, years ago when we would drive behind an old car, you would never even notice it. But today, because cars are so clean, you're right behind people, you never even smell the exhaust. But this one today was just like choking me out, man. I had to wind my window up and it was like totally gross. It's kind of backwards though, eh? You think about it with chainsaws these days and small engines. In the worst, dirtiest countries in the world, third world countries, you can still buy these old school things. And they still make them and sell them there. But in the, you know, here in the United States, other places, Europe, you know, you got to run proper gas. It has no ethanol. It doesn't pollute. Got to have your saws running cleaner. It's like, why isn't the whole world doing it? Not everything makes sense in the world, but we'll see if we can make that work a little bit better. So there you go. That's your basic Tillotson setup. So simple. Carburetor. Very easy. Any questions? Give me a comment. Keep your saw in the wood, stick in the ice, rubbing the road. Your food cooked right. I just did a food video of all things. Anyways, have a good night. I'm going to just clean up here now and organize a couple of things and go watch a little TV and hit the hay. So, have a good night. Thanks for watching. Oh man, I forgot. I hit 18,000 subscribers. Thank you very much, everyone. I love y'all. Appreciate y'all. And just thanks for watching. It really makes my day. Kind of give a tear to my eye. And I just enjoy doing this and helping people out. I don't make much money out of it. I don't really care about the money. It's just something I like to do. So keep coming back. I'll keep coming back. And we'll hang out together. Have a good night. Bye.